Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stuart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous beach sunset landscape painting in acrylic paints. I'm going to teach you how to mix and create gorgeous pastel tones so you can create realistic clouds and skies. I'm going to teach you how to create 3D realism in things like water to create waves, and how to do little tips and tricks just to push back your work to create realism, things like palm trees and your beach, so you can learn how to paint this gorgeous landscape painting. So for the tutorial you need the following colours. They are white, yellow, orange, pink, a dot of green, some purple, a dot of cerulean blue, some cobalt blue and black. Now I have an A3 canvas that all I've done is painted burnt sienna and I've used chalk to create an outline. All I'm going to do is create a horizon. We're going to have a tree line in the far distance with some palm trees. We've got a big bright sun in the middle. We're going to have a nice gradient in colour in our sky. We're going to create some clouds. We're going to have a big wave coming towards our beach and another one just as it comes towards the shore, and we're going to create a lovely light effect, some sand, and add some detail there. So if you'd like to jot down the outline, please feel free to do so. So I'm going to block in the painting just with some nice bright titanium white. And I'm going to add some cad yellow to that white, just to create a very lemony colour. And all I'm going to do is just block in the painting. Now don't worry if it's streaky, acrylics are totally streaky because they're water based. And don't worry if you've got lots of the underneath burnt sienna colour shining through. The reason we do that is because we're using pastel tones in this painting. I want to see where I've missed, and I can see the canvas through by having a dark colour underneath. So all I'm doing here, I'm adding some Naples yellow. Now Naples yellow is white, a little bit of yellow and a dot of black. So lots of white, a little bit of yellow and a dot of black. Now to make this lavender colour, all you need to do is take some purple, maybe a little bit of blue just to make it a bit of a purpley blue, and lots and lots and lots of white. So purple, tiny bit of blue and just lots and lots of white. And all we're going to do is add some of that yellowy light Naples yellow towards it and lots of white, and all we're doing, we're going to create a bridge tone. Now all it is we don't want to jump from yellow to bright blue, it would look a bit weird. So what we're doing is just creating a purpley yellow which just nicely bridges the tone. But as you can see here, just from one coat of paint you can quite clearly see all the brush marks, and you can quite clearly see all the streaks that we'll have to go over. Now to get this light blue, all you need to do is mix a tiny bit of cerulean blue and some cerulean blue and cobalt blue together, and just lots and lots of white. So cerulean blue, some cobalt blue and lots of white, and you should get this lovely pastel blue. You can add a tiny dot, just literally a dot of black just to desaturize it, and you should have this gorgeous pastel blue. So again, don't worry about streaks. You can see how streaky it is. That is quite common with acrylic paint, so don't worry. So we're going to dry it with a hairdryer, and we're going to go over the top and just do the exact same tones and just try to get some of these streaks out. With the acrylic paints, because we're using very pastel tones, we can quite clearly see where we've missed bits. Because we've got that lovely dark tone, that's why I paint my canvas burnt sienna. Now you don't have to do that, you can use a plain white canvas if that's easier for you, but I just find it easier for me because it quite clearly, look, now with a second coat I can see which areas need work. So just using some cad yellow and a tiny bit of orange. I'm just going to mix some cad yellow and orange and a dot of pink, and we're going to take a little bit of black, just a dot. We're just going to desaturize it a little bit. So yellow, orange, so a little bit more pink. Just trying to get a nice tan colour, dot more of orange. Now getting the right tones is the hardest part, and also blending. So if we nail this at the beginning, it's a bit slow at first, but if you get used to this and you keep blending, you keep getting these lovely tones, these are the things that will make your work look realistic. So we've got this lovely sort of tanny peach colour, and all we're going to do is we're just going to block in the bottom of our horizon. Now you tend to get in the far horizon, you tend to get lots of clouds settle at the horizon. So all we're going to do is we're trying to imply that. Now I'm sorry I've been away for 2 weeks. I've had a terrible shoulder and leg injury from old martial arts injury that I'm having physio for. So I haven't been able to paint so much because I haven't been able to concentrate because I'm a bit in pain. So sorry I've been away, but I'm back now and here we go. So I'm mixing some of that lovely Naples yellow, which was just white, some yellow and a dot of black. And all I'm doing, I'm just trying to make it very pastel around my sun, but also I want to create a bit of heat, so that's why I'm using yellow. So I'm just trying to create a bit of heat. Now the great thing, I use very cheap brushes, and everyone asks what sort of brush that I use. I don't use anything in particular, I just use brushes and then I throw them away. I literally use a just large round-headed brush, and as you see, look, you've got streaks in the canvas. That's quite normal. And all we're going to do is we're going to mix some of that purple and white that we had earlier and yellow. So purple, white and yellow, and we're just going to create that nice cooler sky tone. It's still got a little bit of yellow in it. All we're going to do is we're just going to try to get some of these streaks out and try to blend our sky. So just add a tiny bit of white, some purple, and we're just getting a little bit cooler, so less yellow. I think I've got a bit of yellow on my brush, never mind. Let's add a little bit more purple and white, there we go. So just trying to get cooler in tone as we move away from the sun, and we're just trying to get the streaks out at the same time. And then we're going to get some of that light blue, which was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, lots of white and a dot of black. And look, all we're doing, look, now we've got a second coat. You can quite clearly see how much blending is coming together. So our sunset's starting to take shape just from the blending. So look, if you've got big streaks like me, that's the great thing about using burnt sienna. You can see where you've missed areas. You can see where it looks scruffy and rubbish, basically. So by just going over the top, I know it's frustrating. I know it's annoying. I know in a lot of tutorials of other people, they don't cover things like that. They just go flying through it and it's time lapse and you just don't see that. But if you want your work to look really, really pretty and you want it to look at a really professional standard, you just got to go over it sometimes, and that's all it is. Even now, I'm just adding some of this Naples yellow. Sometimes, I don't know if just because I'm right-handed, where I'm pushing down, sometimes on your canvas, you just have frustration where you miss bits and it just doesn't seem to, the paint doesn't want to set, and sometimes you just have to go over it. So look, even now, I'm painting over it, it's still got a big streak in the middle. I have no idea why. It is the law of the sod, but that is just the way it goes. So as I say, sometimes it just doesn't stick. So I'm going to get some pink and purple, and a little bit of orange just off camera, so some pink and purple and a little bit more purple. We're going to try and make a really nice pastel colour for the clouds. I'm going to add some white. Now I've got a warm grey just above there if anyone's looking to make that. All that is orange and some black and some white and a dot of blue, so that warm grey. So look, we've got this lovely pink, orange and purple, and lots of white to create this lovely pastel tone. And all we're going to do is go create this lovely sort of sitting cloud line on the horizon. Now it's a bit strong in colour, so what we're going to do, we're just going to add some heat to it. So how do we add heat? We use hot tones. We're going to use things like orange and yellows. So we're going to add a little bit of orange to the mix and some white, and just below the sun we're just going to add some heat to our cloud line, just to give the impression that that area is getting heat from the sun. And again, it's just to trick the viewer's eyes and just make our work look more realistic. Now as I say, look, now it's drying. It's funny enough, it's a heat wave here in London, and it's 34 degrees I think today. It's very, very hot, so my paint is drying really, really quick, so this is great. So I can just paint over that streak that I missed. So look, all we're doing is just trying to make the blending just look more seamless. So just by adding a little bit of yellow and orange together. So even my paint, look, is drying on my palette. It's so hot here today that it's just drying really, really quick. Can't complain. London is normally rainy and miserable. So it is lovely for all of us here in London. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just getting a lighter tone and I'm just mixing a tiny bit of orange and yellow just further away. So I want to highlight around my sun to be more yellow. So I'm just making this area just either side of my sun a little bit darker by just adding a hint of orange to the mix, just so it looks like the sun is more bright in the center. Just a little trick. So we're going to take some of that Naples yellow and we're going to mix into the purple and white. So Naples yellow and purple and white, a lot more white than anything. And we're just going to make some of that bridge tone. We're just going to smooth this area. While the paint is wet, we're just going to smooth the tones into one another and just try to make our transitions a bit seamless. And where we've got that bit of orange on our brush still, we're just going to mix the two together. And it just looks more wispy and it just makes our sky look more pretty and realistic. Now I know the skies take the longest, it's really weird, but it's the blending, as it keeps trying to say to you. If you nail the blending and you nail all the underpainting, when you put things like the clouds and you put things like the waves on top later, it just makes it look so much more prettier. So all I'm going to do is just get some of that yellow and I'm just going around the sun, just blending it in while it's wet, just to make it look more pretty to the eye and just to make the sun look more radiant. So all I'm doing is just using that bright tone around the sun just to make it look like it's really, really hot. And finally, I'm just going to fill in there's one area that the paint won't take. So that's the great thing. If I hadn't painted it burnt sienna, I wouldn't maybe have noticed that. I wouldn't have seen that horrible streak till later and it would have annoyed me. So sorry about that. So I'm going to get some pink and I'm going to get some orange, tiny bit of yellow, so pink, orange and yellow. And I'm going to get some of this warm grey. Now this warm grey is black, orange and a tiny bit of purple or blue, whatever you fancy, and some white. So we're going to get some white. But warm greys are just basically black and orange, and you can add either a little bit of purple or a little bit of blue. And all we're going to do is create this really nice pastel tone, and all I'm going to do is use a blender brush and I'm just going on the outskirts of my clouds. Now the reason I'm doing this is to soften them up. Because these clouds are very far off in the distance, I don't want them to be very dark in tone. So all I'm doing while I've got that lovely colour, I'm going to use it to create some more clouds. So I've got a really soft blender brush. Now a blender brush is just really soft to the touch. It's almost like a makeup brush. And all we've got is that really light pastel pink, orange, tiny bit of yellow, lots of white and some of that warm grey just to suck a bit of the colour out. And all we're doing is we're just softening up areas and trying to push these clouds right back, make them look really, really wispy. But also by using a light colour, we're trying to trick the eyes and make it look warm around our sun. So these are all the clouds getting lots of sunlight. Now as they get further away from the clouds, they get cooler. So we're going to add some of that cool purple. Now that cool purple is purple and blue mixed together. And we're going to add some of that warm grey just to suck out a little bit of the colour. So we've got this lovely darker tone now, but it's still very pastel. Going to add a little bit of white because we don't want it to be overbearing. We don't want to bring it forward towards the viewer. We want to push it back. So we're just going to do the exact same thing. So now we've got a little bit of darker tone. It's got a bit more purple in it. These are all the clouds that are fading off into the distance that are a bit more in the shadows and obviously a little bit less in the light. So from that they are a bit darker in tone, and all it does, because we've got the lighter tone still on our brush and we've got that purple tone mixing into together, we're creating this lovely seamless transition in our clouds. So really, really easy. Just by using a darker tone, we're just trying to frame our painting by just making the corners a bit darker. And we're just adding some little floater clouds, just little wispy clouds. And because they're really pastel in tone, they're not coming forward, they're right pushed back. Now we're going to get some yellow and white. And we're just going to mix that two tones together. And we're just going to highlight sort of a lemon colour. So you can use yellow lemon, I think it's called, if you're buying it straight out of a tube. And all we're going to do is just highlight our sun just to make it look much more radiant. We're just going to add a tiny bit of orange, lots of white to that mix. So yellow, orange, white. only a little bit of orange because orange is very overpowering, and we're just going to do the same technique we just did with the clouds, just on this area. And again, it's just to make them look less harsh. And while we've got that colour, we're just going to highlight some of these clouds, and these could be the areas that get bits of pockets of sunlight, and it just makes the transitions again look more realistic. So again, by taking our time with the blended background, now we've added the clouds, and now we've got this transition of colours. That is what creates the realism. It's the tones that are tricking your eye. So I put back in my sun, and that is what creates the realism. It's the colours, not necessarily the detail. So all I'm going to do now, I'm just going to get some black and blue and a thin fine liner brush, and all I'm going to do is mix a really dark shadow tone, and I'm just going to block in where I want my wave. Now the reason I'm using black and blue is such a dark colour, we're going to paint the water a very pastel tone again, and all I want to do is use a really dark tone, so when we paint over that, I can see roughly where I want my waves to be. So that when we use chalk, unfortunately when you paint over it, it disappears. So just by using a really dark tone, I can just put in where I want my water to be for our beach. And if you dry it with a hairdryer, make sure you dry it. We can then paint over the top. We don't want to not dry it, because when we use pastel colours later, we don't want to mix it with that black and blue. So I'm going to take some orange and some pink, a little bit of that warm grey. So a little bit of the warm grey, just suck the colour out, some purple and lots of white. I'm just going to mix this nice tanny colour. A bit more yellow, I think. A little bit more yellow. So as I say, the colour mixing is the hardest bit. Once you get used to this was the thing that will come with practice, but making realistic colours, that's pretty good. Yeah, there we go. And what we're going to do, we're just going to go right up to the horizon, and because we've got that lovely black sort of dark bluey colour, we can see just where our waves are going to be. So we're just going to leave that. Because it's nice and dry, it can't pollute my lovely orangey colour. It can't mix it in with that black. So all we're going to do, look, we're just going to block in our water. Now again, all this is to do is to make it look like there's heat on the water surface. We want to kind of match the sky to our water. So our sea tone on our seascape is going to match our sky. So what we're trying to do is, because the sun is so warm, we are trying to use warm colours underneath it. So excuse me while I just lift the painting up just to get to that corner. So there we go, we've created this nice warmth, and what we're going to do, just like the sky, we're going to get cooler as we move side to side. So we're going to get some of that lavender tone, and we're just going to mix that orange into it. So just like we did with the sky, we're just going to combine the two tones. Okay, so it was the purple, white, and we're just going to mix that into that lovely orange while it's still wet, and we're just going to try to make it look like the water is cooling in temperature, in colour, in tone, either side, and we're just blending it together. So look, all I'm doing is using that big brush, and as you can see, because we've got that lovely really dark tone, we can see quite clearly where our wave is. So look, all I'm doing is just mixing the tones together. So look, easy peasy, just blending it and leaving a bit of that heat in the middle. And then all we're going to do is just take some of that purple and white, and I'm just going to make a little bit cooler tone, and I'm just going to create sort of the wash as it comes up to our beach. So our sunset's starting to take shape, our beach, we're just blocking in, and as I say, we're just trying to match the tones. So just making it cooler either side, just to frame the painting. And then what you can do is you can just go back and forth with the lighter orangey tone and just blend the middle just to make it less streaky, just like our sky. It's all in the blending. Try to get nice blending. If you have a seamless colour, it will trick the eye. Now I put some painting tape. I've got a nice straight horizon, and we're going to create some waves. So I'm going to mix some purple and some white, tiny bit of cobalt blue, so some purple, white and cobalt blue. So we've got this lovely bluey colour, okay? And we're going to add some green. So cobalt blue, purple, white, and a bit of green. And we're going to add a tiny bit of that orangey colour that we just mixed, just a little bit, just give it a little bit of heat. And we're just going to create this pastel-y sort of wave, and these are going to be our far off waves. So we're going to go with a flat brush, and we're going to go right up to the tape. So go right up to it to create a nice border. We're just going to go either side of the sun, and we're just going to create the illusion of waves. Now the great thing about a flat brush, it's totally flat, it's got a flat head. You can paint really nice straight lines. So what we're trying to do is up by the horizon, we don't want much waves, we want to just create little divots. We just want to create little straight lines. So look, as we get further down, they might be a bit more diagonal and a bit more chunky, but right at the horizon, we want them to be pretty flat, and we want them to be pretty close together. So all we're going to do is we're just going to do some diagonal ones here, but as we move up we want to be more flat, less streaky, more close together. We should, if you've been watching the videos on how to paint water that I did earlier, we explain how to give that 3D effect, and they are available now if anyone would like to check out these tutorials. There's lots on how to paint realistic water. So look, all we're doing, we're just going to create some diagonals. Because our beach is diagonal, we want to sort of get the viewer to fall into the composition. We're just using this tone just to create the illusion of ripples. So why not, where we've got that dark colour, we'll go over in a minute, why not let's create a wave. So all I'm going to do is block it in. We're going to have a big fat wave here that is bellowing up towards the shore of our beach. It sort of fades out as it goes towards the horizon. So this big chunky wave. There we go. And that could be our shadow tone. So when we put the darker shadows on the top, we can use that for things like foam. Now what we're going to do here, we're going to create some sea foam. So we're going to create all the sort of wave that comes up towards the shore. And then we have another big one here. So we've got a nearer one that comes right up to the shore. Could be someone like Hawaii or someone like that. Oh, I want to go on holiday. So look, there we go. Create all this lovely chunky wave here. So look, this could be all our shadow here. And let's have another one coming up here, sort of coming out. Easy peasy. So already, just our water is starting to look more 3D. Just from doing that. Now we're going to get some of that purpley blue and some of that warm grey, which was black, orange, tiny bit of purple and white. And all I'm going to do is just make a similar colour, a little bit darker, and I'm just going to block in the corner. Obviously that's where I'm going to sign it, so I want it to be quite dark in tone, but I don't want it to be too dark because we're trying to do a nice pastel painting here. So I'm just going to block in this corner, because obviously I want to sign it here on the left hand side. So just block it in, don't worry if it's scruffy, we can all neaten it up later. Just more to get covered. I haven't decided how I want the water to go. I think I'll have it a bit more diagonally. So actually let's get some of that purple and white and let's create more of a sort of beach feel. While it's still wet, we just sort of blend the two tones together. This could be sort of all the froth coming up towards the beach. So what I'm doing, I'm just striking it into that previous tone, just merging the two, just to create a nice sort of combination, just to create some wet sand. And then I'm just going to get some of that orange and yellow and white. I'm just going to go over the top, use my finger, just to blend it back in, just to create that heat. Now I'm going to make a really dark tone now, so I'm going to get black and blue. So lots of cobalt blue and black. And a little bit of green. So blue, black, and a little bit of green. And a tiny bit of orange, just to suck a bit of the colour out, make it look a bit more brownier. And a tiny bit of purple. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a really harsh shadow tone for the wave. So this is all a bit of the wave that's not getting any sunlight. As the water cascades, it creates a really dark shadow because it's got its back to the sunlight. And as it comes towards the beach, you get this lovely effect. And because we've put that really nice colour in already, that we can turn that into sea foam. We can turn that into sort of all the wash for the wave. So again, using a flat headed brush, it's really easy to do straight lines and diagonals. We're doing the exact same trick as we just did our waves, but we're just making these waves look much more prominent and much more closer. Using dark tones and saving our dark tones to last, we can bring things forward. So we want to bring this beach, our lovely sunset beach, towards the viewer. So by just creating and using a dark tone, we can bring these waves closer to the viewer, and also using that pastel tone, we can have them further back. So again, it's just by using tones, we are tricking the viewer's eyes and creating realism in our seascape. So all I'm doing, I'm using the flat brush, got hardly any paint. I'm just using it almost like a fine liner because the edge is so fine, and I'm just putting in the edges of the waves and the wash as it comes towards our shore. And all I'm doing as it comes towards the shore, you get loads of ripples and you just get loads of shadows. But because we've got that lovely underpainting that is tricking your eye just like our sky, what it's doing is it's making it look more realistic than it is, simply from the underpainting colours are so realistic. So look, just have another big one here and a few little ones, and it's already starting to look more realistic already, more 3D, more three-dimensional, just from the tones. So it's a really easy technique. People always ask me, how did I teach myself? Well, I had really good art teachers at school, and I went to an art college, and then I didn't paint for 20 years. Believe it or not, I was a banker, which is crazy. And I came back to it only 4 years ago, and literally I taught all myself again, just simply from painting and watching people like my hero Bob Ross and loads of fantastic YouTube artists such as Chuck Black, Colour by Felix, all these different people, and just literally taught myself how to paint again. So anyone could do this. So look, we're just using this technique here just to add some texture to our water, and again just to darken this left hand corner just to emphasize it. So we're going to sign it here. So everyone who's watching, I'm just like you. I had no experience, and I've done this all by myself and taught myself everything just because I love what I do. So if you really love what you do, it's really easy to teach yourself because you're really interested. So look, there we go. We've taken our lovely tape off. We've got a nice straight horizon. We're going to mix some of that orange and yellow that we had earlier and white. I'm just going to make it a little bit more matching in tone and just softer on our beach, just so the sunlight looks like it's hitting on our beach, and it just makes it look less harsh. But that is starting to look fantastic. Our water's looking really 3D already. So we're going to get some black. We're going to add it to that mix. That was our shadow mix. And we're just going to add a tiny bit of green to that mix. And we're going to create some palm trees and some sort of bushes in the far background. So all I'm going to do is get a round-headed brush, but a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to create sort of texture. So all I'm doing, I'm just creating sort of bushes that are going to be in the far distance. And these are all going to be sort of the tops and bits of forage in the far distance that's coming towards the beach. And I'm going to turn back to a flat-headed brush, and I'm going to draw some palm trees. So all I do is you do a trunk, and just remember it's always thinner at the top. And then all I'm going to do, if my hand gets out the way, is use the flat-headed brush just to create some palm leaves. So you do the trunk, always make sure that the bottom is thicker than the top, and then just come down diagonally with a flat-headed brush and just curve it, and we can create sort of the palm leaves just coming out in diagonals. There we go. And lastly, let's have a big one. So we've got, it's like the three little bears. We've got a little one, the middle one, and a big one. So there we go. It's like my family, me, my wife and my daughter. So there we go, we've got one of each, big, little and the small. So we've got this lovely palm trees in the far distance, and we're just going to mix some colour up. I'm just going to mix some of that purple and white again, and I'm just going to create some froth. I kind of think it's a bit too flat. I want to make it a bit more 3D. So what I'm going to do is mix some purple and white, and I'm just going to create some froth. So these could be all the sort of wash when the water comes up towards the shore, and it sort of creates that sort of lovely sea froth. So why not have that coming right up to the shore? sort of as it retracts back, we get that lovely sort of look. And why not, we could add that as a highlight because we've got that lovely shadow colour. Just add tiny little highlights on some of our water, and that could be some of the froth, just to make our waves look more ferocious and more 3D and match in tone. So that looks so cool. So this could all be frothy, this could all be the water coming up towards the beach. Why not have a little one here, why not? So this is super easy. So look, all we're doing, we're using the tones again to trick the eye and to create realism. So look, all this could be all the froth as the wave peels back. So our beach, our sunset beach, is really taking shape. But I think we should need some more detail. So I'm going to create some footprints. So I've got some black and blue, and all I'm going to do is create footprints. Now I'm sorry, just like the palm trees, I didn't realise how big my hand is. But all I'm doing is creating gaps, and I'm creating footprints that fade off into the distance. So these could be all the people who walk along the beach throughout the day, and as the water retracts back, you get all these lovely little footprints. So all I'm doing is I've got these big feet as they come towards the viewer, and they get smaller and closer together as they go off into the distance. So I've just got loads of little footprints just to create some texture on my beach, and I'm just going to get some of that dark blue and purple, tiny bit of that warm grey, just to put a less harsh colour in, just at the tip, just to make sure, just like the shadows that we had, just to add some texture. There we go, it's looking fab. And to finish off, we're going to get some green, some sap green and some purple and a little bit of orange just to heat it up. Ooh, so green, orange and purple. And more green than anything. I think it's a bit too orange, but more green than anything. And we're just going to put some highlights on our bushies, just so it doesn't look as flat, and just give it a bit of realism. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it on the right hand side of my trees, and I'm going to just leave some gaps in that dark shadow colour, but just add some highlights to our bushes and foliage just to make it look more realistic. And the reason I'm putting it on the right hand side of the trees is because they're the areas that are getting the sunlight, so it's just to emphasize a highlight on those areas. So again, it's just to give it a little bit more realism, all in the tones baby, it's just in the colors, just to create the realism and trick the eye. So just makes a few more spikes just so it looks a bit more real and goes back further. And to just finish it off, I'm going to get some purple and mix it to the mix just to make it a bit more bluey purple. And I'm just going to put that corner, and I'm just going to make it curl around just so it looks like this tropical beach goes on forever. So this could be Hawaii or something. And I'm just going to blend it into that tone, and just like our horizon where we used a lovely bluey purple colour, what that does, unlike the black, it pushes it back and it makes it look further back in the distance. So there we go, I've signed it in the left hand corner. You've learned how to do a lovely gradient in your sky, where you've learned how to do realistic clouds, you've learned how to use pastel tones and to soften things, to push things back. You've learned how to do a lovely undertone in your water, how to do realistic waves using different tones, a lighter tone in the far distance and darker tones to bring your waves closer to your beach. And you've learned how to do things like footprints, you've learned how to do wash, how to do palm trees, and how to push that far off distance to create this gorgeous sunset beach acrylic painting. So thank you so much for watching everyone. I'm glad I'm back, I'm glad I'm feeling better. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we should have a new tutorial coming on the screen on the right hand side. So thank you very much, I'm Murray, take care of yourself guys, and see you soon, bye.